What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Friday edition of Burn It Down with Kim Brown, the safe space where we set oppression ablaze and we know, believe, and feel it down in our feet that something better will arise from the ashes. I'd like to thank everybody for making some time to join us today for the Friday program. I'm so happy to see all y'all's very specific faces up in the place. What's up to all of our regulars checking in, and for some newbies we may have out there. As y'all know, we got a little bit of a bump in some subscribers. Maybe some people liked what we had to say here on the Burn It Down with Kim Brown channel. So all of our newcomers, we like to say welcome, bienvenue, bienvenidos. And if you have not yet hit the subscribe button, please take a moment to do that. And you can follow us on Facebook. By the way, guys, we are getting dragged on Facebook by all the Tucker Carlson, Fox News, Facebook users. So if you could head on over to the Burn It Down with Kim Brown Facebook page, give it a little like, maybe even cuss out a racist if you have time. We would appreciate it. But you can also always follow us on Twitter at Burn It Down KB, and we are available for your support in a myriad of different ways. So, guys, yesterday, April, that would be the 22nd of April, marked the 51st anniversary of Earth Day, since the very first Earth Day. And since we have been marking Earth Day, you know, Earth not doing all that great. Earth is struggling a little bit there. And, you know, Earth is struggling because of capitalism. There's no other reason for it. There's no other explanation for it. It doesn't matter if people are eating meat. It doesn't matter if people are driving cars. the root of Earth's issue has to do with capitalism and the insistence that capitalism, how can I say this delicately, fuck everything, right? In some form or fashion. That's what capitalism does. And it is fucking over the earth in big and terrible ways. And Earth Day is a sort of odd thing, right? But it's a good opportunity for us, for people in our communities, to talk about the ways that environmental justice is a racial justice issue. It is a gender justice issue. It touches a lot of different areas. When we don't have access to clean water, clean food, clean air, etc. So there were some actions yesterday around Earth Day. One took place right here in our nation's capital. And I'm not exactly sure who was behind this. I want to say it was the Extinction Rebellion people, but I'm not 100% sure. But when I first saw this, I said, oh, that's cool. And then when I thought about it, I said, wait a minute, maybe that's not so cool. Take a look at this video that was shot by Jane Recker, who was a staff writer at Washingtonian magazine. This was a demonstration of climate activists taking wheelbarrows of what was initially reported as cow poop. I found out later it was actually not cow poop. I'll tell you what it is after the clip wraps. But they were taking wheelbarrows of shit down to the White House to let them know that's exactly what they thought about Joe Biden's environmental policies. Tunde, can we please take a look at that clip, please?
Okay, it's all right. Our plan is good enough. I'm sure they will figure it out. What do we call that? Bullshit! 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 What do we call that? Bullshit! No more, no more bullshit! Bullshit! No more climate crisis! Let's do it! Time is running out! Time is running out! Time is bullshit! So time is running out! Time is running out! Time is running out! As you bullshit us all, time is running out! Time is running out! Time is running out! As you bullshit us all, time is
So again, that was a action that seemed to get a lot of attention, at least somewhat online. And the journalist who reported that, as I said, Jane Recker, who writes for Washingtonian magazine. Now, further down in her Twitter thread where she had posted those clips, it was the National Farmers Union and Extinction Rebellion DC said that it was not actually cow poop. It was a compost mixture of all kinds of animal shit. It was goat shit, cow shit, dog shit. It was all kinds of shit that they dropped right there at the White House. Now, symbolically, it looks good, right? Well, I live in the DC area and I know chances are who they had to send down there to clean up that cow shit or the compost of fecal matter. And it was probably somebody Black or somebody brown. And so that made that action, a little less cool. But marking Earth Day, of course, the Biden administration, as every Democratic administration tends to do on Earth Day, they do these performative gestures about, climate summits and how much they care about the earth. Meanwhile, green lighting fracking projects, still green lighting oil pipeline projects, and generally bad things that impact the environment that particularly disproportionately harm Black and Indigenous communities. Also, let me not forget about the fact that the Biden administration is continuing to build that wall down on the border, which is just violating all kinds of land rights with the Indigenous folks down at the border. So the Interior Secretary, the first ever Native woman to hold a cabinet position, former congressperson and now Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland, gave a Earth Day message. Now, we don't have anything against Deb Haaland over here, but I see Deb Haaland, and I see so many other Black people who have been put into positions of power / representation. And as much as the U.S. government has done harm to her people specifically, you know, it's interesting, but it's good that she is in this position to talk about the issues of climate justice. So Tunde, if we could please take a look at Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland.
Hi, everyone. Secretary Deb Haaland here, coming to you this Earth Day from the Department of the Interior. As we celebrate our planet today, we must recognize that we are in an urgent fight for our future. Everyone in this country deserves clean water, air, and land, but for too long, an unequal burden of pollution has fallen on communities of color and poor communities. For generations, we've put off the transition to clean energy, and now we face a climate crisis. It's a crisis that doesn't discriminate, and it is putting everyone at risk. That's why at Interior, we're working to address the climate crisis, restore balance on public lands and waters, advance environmental justice, and invest in a clean energy future. But we all have a role to play in leaving this land better for future generations. We must each commit to work every single day to take care of our Earth. Happy Earth Day, everyone.
You guys, there have been countless pieces and studies done about the harmful impacts that dirty climates have on Black and brown people specifically. And when we hear about the issue of the oil pipelines, either transporting natural gas, crude oil, or tar sands, you know, many rejoiced when the Biden administration announced the cancellation of the Keystone XL pipeline. But there are hundreds of pipelines that crisscross this nation from the south to the northeast to the Midwest. Lots of lands, lots of drinking water, lots of places where people live is at great risk for being permanently contaminated. It's not a matter of if these pipelines will leak or rupture or spill. It's a matter of when. And I'm glad the issue of the Dakota Access Pipeline and the actions that were taking place at Standing Rock got as much attention as they did. But there are other projects happening across the country that are not getting as much attention. And one has to do with the Mountain Valley Pipeline that is going to run from Southern Virginia into North Carolina, carrying natural gas, and it will impact Indigenous lands and places where Black people live. And I wanted to take a quick peek, if we could, at a news package along with some videos that have been shot. So let me just set the stage for you a tiny bit, because our guest is going to lay the whole story out for us. But at the end of March marked the tentative end of like a 2.5 year like standoff between people who live in that area where they want to put the pipeline, the Mountain Valley Pipeline, versus the pipeline constructors, right? And people have been protesting by chaining themselves to equipment, by sitting in trees that are in the path of where they hope to clear the area to make way for the pipeline. So this is from the end of March. We're going to start off with a package from WSLS TV News 10 in Southern Virginia. And then we're going to see a couple of videos that were posted to the @StopTheMVP Twitter page, which is for the Appalachians Against Pipelines. That's the Twitter account for that group. So Tunde, if we could take a look at that, please, guys. I want y'all to pay attention to this because this is a big effing deal. I know a lot of people who watch this show, we are urbanites, but we need to please never, ever forget our rural cousins, our brothers and our sisters. Don't think that the rural struggle isn't real. Don't think that our kinfolk that live in the country are somehow absolved or immune to the issues of environmental justice and climate disaster. So Tunde, if we could take a look at this montage in the bees, please.
Happening right now, law enforcement has removed one of the tree sitters protesting the Mountain Valley Pipeline. We've been told the woman was not hurt during the extraction and is set to go before a judge for going against a ruling that they needed to vacate the property. 10 News reporter Lindsay Kennett explains what's being done to get the other protester down.
Police have blocked off public access to Cove Hollow Road, so protesters had to gather down the street. Because of that restriction, we weren't able to witness the negotiations. However, we do have these photos and videos. Police sent these. They tell us this process could take multiple days. They're hoping the tree sitters leave on their own, but if not, they plan to safely extract them, but wouldn't say exactly how. Meanwhile, a tree sitter posted this video on Facebook. Protesters tell me they want to protect the environment and waterways, and they're angry the public can't watch what's going on, worried it could become violent. I spoke with one protester, Donald Jones, whose family owns farmland in Giles County that the pipeline will cut across. He says his dad, who passed away last month, protested the pipeline for years.
Hopefully he's up in heaven looking down and hopefully proud of me for still standing up for what's right. Because he sure thought it was a fight worth fighting.
A Mountain Valley Pipeline spokesperson released a statement that reads in part, while we respect the opinions of those opposed to MVP and to natural gas pipelines in general, there is no excuse for the unlawful actions taken by these activists. Reporting in Montgomery County, I'm Lindsay Kennett, 10 News, working for you.
And again, within the last hour, the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office says they were able to safely remove one protester. A second protester remains in the trees.
So the Sheriff's Department, you're now under arrest. That's the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department. That's the third time. So this is Sheriff's Department, State Police, Commonwealth Attorney, and these are the tree sitters, which I can zoom in a little bit. That's the first couple, and then the other one is over here. And then down here is the crane and some equipment, and then more sheriff's cars. And so this is the big crane that they just put into place. So what they're doing is dropping the state police officers. I don't think I can see them. They're in a, there they are. They are in a bucket right there. You can see where I...
All right, this is Acre at the Yellowfinch Tree Sits, and you are looking at an extraction attempt currently happening. We got a giant yellow crane. Behind that crane is the hill where they've tipped two excavators, so we're hoping that they don't tip a crane. On the other side of my sit, we got... Here, let's see if I can find it for you. We had police over here. Oh yeah. We have cops. They're pretty well armed for a couple tree sitters. There's tear gas canisters and tasers and SWAT vests. I don't know if they're expecting a riot or what, but...
Well, when there's Black and brown people offering up any kind of resistance, be it peaceful or otherwise, of course, the police need to respond with too much force. Well, guys, to help us gain some more insight about why it is important that the Mountain Valley Pipeline be stopped, we are joined today with activist Crystal Cavalier. Crystal is a co-founder of the 7 Directions of Service. She's also the executive director of Missing Murdered Indigenous Women North Carolina. Crystal is a citizen of the Occaneechi Band of the Saponi Nation from North Carolina. She is an expert in the field of strategic intelligence, political campaigns, and public administration. And currently, Crystal is working on her doctorate at the University of Dayton in dissertation on social justice of missing murdered Indigenous women and gas oil pipelines in frontline communities. And Crystal, thank you so much for making some time. Let me send a special shout out to my friend Jen Deerenwater for suggesting that we even speak to you about this very important issue. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on your show.
Thank you, dear. So talk to us about, well, before we even get into the Mountain Valley Pipeline, get into the Mountain Valley Pipeline, but also talk to us about the lands that this pipeline is going to go through and how it will impact the people there and who are the people there.
So the Mountain Valley, there's two pipelines. So it's the Mountain Valley Pipeline and the Mountain Valley Pipeline Southgate extension. So we were watching them remove the tree sitters from the Mountain Valley Pipeline path. And I live on the southern side of the Mountain Valley Pipeline Southgate extension. And so just 10 days before they removed those tree sitters, my husband and I, we actually went to visit the tree sitters, sing songs, say some prayers for them, just to give them encouragement, because they sat in those trees for over 900 days. And they, stopped that pipeline for, what is that, 2-3 years? And so, they are really, really warriors. And, they're still in jail now. Like, why would the police hold these people in jail without a bond? Like, that, it's not like they're murderers, right? They're stopping the murders of these trees. So that's just ridiculous. But the land that is going through is traditionally Monacan land and Occaneechi, Saponi, and Tutelo land. So those are the lands that is going through. It is a fracked gas pipeline that runs 303 miles from the Utica Shale Mountains in West Virginia, going all the way through Virginia. And then when it gets to Chatham, Virginia, it switches at the air compressor station, or the Lambert compressor station. And then they're going to run 70 miles through Chatham, Virginia, and then it's going to cross the border into Rockingham County and Alamance County. And so I've been fighting this pipeline for 3 years, the Mountain Valley Pipeline Southgate extension, and then the Mountain Valley Pipeline, people have been fighting against that for 6 years. So
what are the It does. And thank you for that, Crystal. So what are the concerns of the community about this pipeline passing through their lands?
So, okay, what really got me upset was in January, homeowners or landowners received a condemnation letter from the Mountain Valley Pipeline. And what that means, it's kind of like, how the government has eminent domain and they're like, oh, we're going to take this. So it's like that for corporations. They're just going to be like, man, we're going to take this, and this is a piece of your land. And usually this land has been in families for, hundreds of years, right? And even though it's some white landowners, it's also Indigenous and Black landowners that own these pieces of property. And usually these people don't have a generational wealth to be able to afford an attorney to help fight these condemnation cases. And so what we're doing is letting the people know that they're not alone. We're trying to mobilize these people to say, hey, let's educate you about this process, because often these pipeline companies come in here and they like to intimidate. They like to say, okay, your neighbor over here is doing this, so you should go ahead and do it. And then they usually lowball people to try to take their property. They don't even give them, they just intimidate them, and they'll say like, oh, well, you have no choice. And I mean, it's really not nice. But this is the thing. They're going through a lot of burial mounds and sacred sites, right? So I will tell you that this one property in Chatham, Virginia, where the air compressor station is going, is through the Jones property. And Anderson Jones has Native American heritage. And then there's a property adjacent to them that actually has a burial cemetery on it, right? And so the Mountain Valley Pipeline Southgate extension purchased that property. And we know what they usually do with these burial sites, just like these other land degradations, they just dig the people up. Now, I don't know where they're going to intern the bodies at, but these are the bones of our ancestors, African American and Indigenous people. And so, they're not running these through like, country clubs or, other land other than the rural communities.
Absolutely. Thank you real quick to Lateef and Northern Witch. Peter Low Frequency, I meant to thank you a couple shows back for your support. We appreciate you guys showing us love on today's episode. Crystal, so, you know, I don't have a lot of faith in the government, federal, state, local, or otherwise. And judging by the videos that we saw that were posted to the Stop the MVP Twitter page, where the one person was describing who all was out there to arrest the tree sitters, state police, Montgomery County Sheriff's Department, and the Commonwealth Attorney was all out there. Have residents and landowners been able to get any sort of recourse with the state of either Virginia or of North Carolina? Have the states been any help to people living on the lands where the pipeline is set to be constructed?
So I'll tell you, here in North Carolina, the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, back in August, they did deny the MVP Southgate's 401 water quality permit. And we've worked with organizations like the Haw River Assembly and the Sierra Club, along with other, I think, Appalachian Voices, other organizations to do these campaigns. And I worked really close with Desiree Shelley from the Monica Nation. Over the summer, we had an Indigenous-led rally where we talked about the effects of this pipeline coming through Virginia and North Carolina, especially close to sacred sites. The North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality did deny that 401 water quality permit, but as you know, the MVP actually appealed it, and then they just went to court back in February, and they kicked it back to North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality to come out with a decision. And so we're praying, hoping, encouraging the new Secretary of the Department of Environmental Quality to actually deny that permit, because we do not want this pipeline, because it's going to run adjacent through drinking reservoirs, run adjacent to, and it's also coming really close to two historical African slave sites and cemeteries where Indigenous and African Americans are buried. And, you know, these pipelines need about, I want to say they're a 24-inch pipeline, and they need, I want to say, a 200-foot easement. And then I think a 50-foot permanent easement. And, you know, when you have a pipeline coming right through the middle of your property, first of all, it just kills whatever land you have. Secondly, if you're growing crops, you know, that is, you know, it's dangerous. It's chemicals. It's going to get on your food. So you can't grow any food sources there. And that's what most of these rural farmers are. You know, they're having, this is their livelihood, right? And it's being affected by this pipeline corporation not really caring. They're not giving them the full value of it. And North Carolina has already said this pipeline is not needed. The Assistant Secretary Sheila Holman said that this pipeline was not needed. It's not benefiting any people. They're not bringing the gas to us. They're actually going to export the gas. And so we're trying to encourage people to like stand together, unite. This affects white landowners, African American landowners, and Indigenous people. We always say that the problem is, as always in Indian country, is getting American politicians to care about human beings more than their campaign contributions. And it stands right now, U.S. officials, rather than heeding these side effects of the nation's addiction to oil and natural gas, they're focusing on fighting protesters like Wren and Acre.
Thank you so much for that. And okay, so I wanted to go in that direction because I do want to ask what the Biden administration, at least, or the Biden administration's EPA has been to this. And I'm guessing that all of this connected to this pipeline, this interstate pipeline. So obviously the federal government has to have some sort of oversight and authority into it. When did this pipeline begin? What was the birth of this pipeline? And has it basically been rubber stamped by the government, the federal government, regardless of who was in the White House?
Right. So, you know, the previous presidential administration just kind of rolled back all of these protections on sacred sites. And then they also rolled back protections on pipelines, right? So letting them have whatever way they wanted to do and run it through these communities. Now, currently, the EPA secretary is Michael Reagan, who actually was North Carolina's Department of Environmental Quality Secretary. So he kind of got a promotion. So we're advocating to President Biden, Secretary Deb Haaland, and Michael Reagan, the EPA administrator, to deny this pipeline just outright because it's just not needed. They already have a pipeline that's running through there, the Transco pipeline. Instead of putting another pipeline, they should just fix the one that's already there, because we know these pipelines leak over time. They cause cancers. And, you know, we're just trying to educate the people, like, look down towards the horizon. Don't look like right here in front of your face. And we're trying to prevent these cancers that usually pop up in these clusters right along the route of these pipelines. And so I don't know what the Biden administration is doing. I do know that on DAPL, I believe President Biden kicked it back to the courts to make a decision. And I really haven't been following that pipeline too closely because I've been focusing on our actions coming up on May 2nd. But, you know, he kicked it back. He didn't cancel it like he did the Keystone XL pipeline. You know, we're calling on him to cancel DAPL and the MVP Southgate and MVP Mainline because, you know, it's just not needed.
It's certainly not at the cost, the potential cost, really the inevitable cost to people that live in that area, because with these pipelines, it's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when they will spill, rupture, or leak, and it's devastating. And there is not enough enthusiasm and or vigor from these big oil companies nor the federal government to get in there and clean up as there is to make sure that the pipeline is constructed in the first place. But you mentioned that you have an action coming up in early May. And I wanted to talk about some of the organizers and the tree sitters who have literally been putting their bodies on the line to prevent, I think it was the yellowfinch clearing or the yellowfinch trees area from being cleared. And unfortunately, after the tree sitters were removed in late March, they didn't end up clearing those trees. But as you mentioned earlier, I believe at least 2 people still remain in jail on relatively minor charges, trespassing charges, and they're being held without bond. Talk to us about what the activism and actions have been around stopping this pipeline and what's coming up on the horizon.
So the MVP Mainline, the tree sitters were out there, you know, they did that for 900 days, over 900 days, and that was a huge action. And then we did have a couple of raging grannies actually chain themselves to like one of the bulldozers. And so
wait, what's a raging granny? You gotta tell. Wait,
it's a group of women who are I don't want to call them granny age, but I guess I don't know what the age limit is. But these are a group of women who go around and it's a international organization. And they fight for, you know, social justice, racial justice, economic justice, women's rights, things like that. And they stand up to these oppressors and they just like link together. And I don't really want to say most of the women that I've met have been white. There might be some people of color grannies, but I haven't met any, but they're really awesome. And they put on these great programs and they sing these wonderful songs. And they really get people, they get their attention and they capture their heart because these are like women liberators who, you know, were, you know, early activists in their life and they've, you know, grown into that. One of my favorite grannies is Lib Hutcheby. I met her through a pipeline action and she is always on the go. You can't get Lib down. And I mean, she's great, but that rate, not Lib, but I'm not sure which Lib chained herself to the bulldozer, but I thought that was a really bold action because, you know, that can be quite dangerous.
It can be. And I'm so glad you told me that these people are white because we know that they are the least likely to be on the receiving end of state violence. Not to say that our white brothers and sisters do not get state violence. They absolutely do. But right. If police are given a chance between harming a white body, black or brown body, they're less likely to harm the white body. So yes, right. big kudos to them for putting their bodies on the line. I wanted to put something up if I could here. I wanted to show you this because when I was researching this story, it definitely appears as though despite the fact that the tree sitters were removed by force, some still being held in detention right now. Tunde, can we pop up C2? Because this was a tweet that I found, again, on the Appalachians Against Pipelines Twitter page at Stop the MVP. And this was posted just 3 days ago. And the tweet reads, Alice Elliott has stopped active construction of the Mountain Valley Pipeline in Giles County, Virginia, by locking herself to construction equipment suspended less than 20 feet in the air. MVP has been unable to use the equipment that Alice has locked to since 7 a.m. this morning. Hashtag no pipelines. So we definitely want to give Alice Elliott some props because Alice said she's not scared of the police, the Mountain Valley Pipeline construction, nor is she scared of heights. She's going to chain herself to the equipment. But talk to us about, I guess, what the law enforcement response has been to the tree sitters and to the activists who have been advocating against the Mountain Valley Pipeline expansion. It appears to be, as most police responses is, overdone, right? It's too much force. Describe this for us if you could, Crystal.
So I will tell you that I thought it was just overkill. It was a waste of taxpayers' money to have all of these people in tactical gear for 3 tree sitters, right? Like, you needed this show of force. Like, to me, it was just symbolic or just a show of force, right? To flex your muscles. I do know that when my husband and I went up there, we went with one of the activists, and he's a white accomplice, and he was like, hey, if the police come up, you just take my car and go, because I don't want any Indigenous people arrested. So, I really appreciated that. He's really awesome. But they actively, target your face. They notice you, and if they come back, they'll arrest you, right, for trespassing, because they're trying to like stop it. And so
when you say they target your face, what do you mean by that, Crystal?
Like, kind of like they profile, like they get an image of you, or they kind of know who you are or what you look like. So I guess they take a picture of you, right? And so they'll be like, oh, that's like an activist, they're not allowed up here. They're coming here to support the tree sitters. And so I guess if you do that a lot, they will arrest you. There was a woman that we met. She couldn't go up there because they were actively, probably told her that they would arrest her. Mm-hmm. And she was a white lady. So, if they're arresting white people, it must
it's bad now. Yeah. God gracious. When white people ain't safe from the state, it's terrible for everybody else. So talk to us, Crystal, about what's happening May 2nd.
Okay, so May 2nd is an Indigenous and Black-led pipeline action. We are working with several organizations, and we're actively going to have people work in teams, and we're going to walk the Southgate pipeline, Southgate extension route, and we are doing it safely, socially distant, possible. And that's why we're asking people to come in their teams. And we're going to start at 10 o'clock that morning, and people are going to walk either a mile, 5 miles, 3 miles, 10 miles, whatever they want to do. And also, if you can't walk and you want to kayak or canoe, we have a couple of paddles going on the Dan River, because we're going to stop along 3 rivers that are being affected. So the Bannister River, the Dan River, and the Haw River. At 9 o'clock in the morning, we're having an interfaith prayer with Baptist ministers close to the beginning of the Southgate pipeline. And then at 10 o'clock is our kickoff. And then at 12 noon, we're going to meet at the Bannister. At 3 o'clock, we're going to meet at Draper's Landing in Eden. And we're going to have a socially distant rally. And then we will have speakers. We have William Barber III, Kim Porter, several Indigenous activists, and others that are going to be there to talk about all of this environmental degradation. Especially, it's coming by Lower Saratown, which is a Indigenous site that has been there, for hundreds of years. And, this pipeline is threatening this site, because, if it was to blow up or explode, that archaeological site is gone, and that's a sacred site to us. And then we're going to end up at 6:00 in Haw River with the Raging Grannies. They'll be there to sing. We have a couple of other speakers. A.O. Wilson will be there from the Haw River Assembly. And we are partnering with the Haw River Assembly to walk that last leg of the mile. And we're going to actually see where the pipeline is going or where it's supposed to end in Haw River.
Can you give everybody a website or a social media account that they can follow and look out for more information about either how to be involved on May 2nd or how to get involved or get more information about this fight against the Mountain Valley Pipeline in general?
So, okay, they can go to the number 7 directionsofservice.com, or they can follow us on Twitter. I believe it's 7 directions of. So the number 7 directions of on Twitter. And then what are we on? I don't know if we're on Instagram, but if you're on Facebook, 7 Directions of Service, you'll find the event on our event page.
Now, Crystal, you are fighting for liberation for your community on more than one front. I know that you are, the co-founder of the 7 Directions of, and you're the executive director of Missing Murdered Indigenous Women North Carolina. And before we began, I said, I'd like to have you back to talk about the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women. And you said, well, actually, it intersects with the construction of this pipeline. So for one, talk to us about the issue of missing murdered Indigenous women in North Carolina. And I mean, how is that connected to the construction of this pipeline?
So there is a connection between pipelines and sexual violence. And so when you try to address the missing murdered Indigenous women crisis, it's counteracted by problems that man camps cause. And let me explain that to you. So a man camp is also called a work camp modular housing. And they're temporary housing communities set up for these well-paid, typically male laborers who are tasked with constructing this pipeline. And the pipelines that snake their way above, across, and below, our waterways and lands. And more often than not, these routes, and a result of these man camps, find themselves coming through rural, marginalized communities. And there's been a number of studies and reports and news articles talking about this type of these pipelines that are coming through. And it does say that fossil fuel extraction impacts more than just our economy and environment. It is more than land, air, and water, because our lives as Indigenous women, we're threatened and we're, at risk. And it's all connected, right, to capitalism and colonialism. Pipelines can actively fuel violence against Native women because you have to go into, men sexualized or fantasized Native or exotic women. They also like to somebody, the dog doesn't like that.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right. Your dog is upset about it. Let me see.
Okay.
So pipelines are typically routed to these rural communities, and then local law enforcement, they don't actively search our people. They don't highlight our people, right? They just be like, are you sure they just didn't run away? Are you sure they didn't just want to disappear? They're just, just left, they just leave our women just out there. And so the first 24 hours when women go for when women go missing, the first 24 hours are the most influential. Secondly, the law enforcement are usually corrupt themselves. So that's how it intersects, these pipelines and things like that.
I have pit bulls and they are obnoxious. I'm so sorry about that, Crystal. Thank you very much for explaining, how these things come together, and especially basically how capitalism and colonialism and violence against Native women specifically is what helps to fuel this. So I don't know if you have somebody whose story may not be known or who people need to know about, or whose family is still very much looking for them? Can you talk to us about perhaps a missing person or a missing Indigenous woman? And if you know any of the details, I guess, surrounding her disappearance?
Well, most of the women I know have been murdered. So I'll give you an explanation. So
I'm very sorry.
There's 3 women's cases who happened in Robinson County, and it's an active investigation going on. And this is the 4th year anniversary of them finding this woman. So the first woman they found, her name was Rhonda Jones, and she was found murdered, stuffed upside down in a trash can. The second woman, her name was Kristen Bennett. She was found naked, stuffed in a China hutch. And then the last woman, Megan Oxidine, she actually went missing after being on a newscast speaking about she knew those 2 women. And then she ended up being murdered. And she was found, I believe, just several yards away from where the first 2 women were. And so even though pipelines play a huge part in that, frat gas, because, men come into these communities and they don't understand our native people. And especially here on the East Coast, we're first contact tribes. And so, our culture was taken away. We were assimilated. We had to ascribe to the European way of life. And so, our language and customs, they were just gone. And so because, all of the racial tensions that were happening. So most of these MMIW, missing, murdered, Indigenous women cases, they're murder cases, they're trafficking, they're sexual assault, they're domestic violence, they're just full-on assault, firearms, and other offenses and other crimes. And so, we have to look at all that. And it was an epidemic that started out in Canada through like the Bakken oil fields. And it's the most well-documented cases started out in the tar sands region of Alberta, Canada, and then it moved down to western North Dakota and eastern Montana. And that is through the Bakken oil fields. And this activity is no way exclusive to that region, but they started a movement. And when I came home, I used to work in Washington, D.C. for the federal government. And when I moved back home, I started to notice that there was a lot more human trafficking or people going missing or people ended up murdered. And then when I looked at these reports, the southeastern portion of the United States, the data was incomplete. There was no data for us. And so it just started me thinking like, okay, I need to understand what happens. So then I found out that here in North Carolina, most of the police, they don't classify Indigenous people. They classify us as either white, Black, or Hispanic. And then they don't classify these women's deaths as murders. They classify them as suspicious deaths. So they can't even get the same type of investigation or attention that other high-profile murder cases would receive. And so usually there's often drug activities, corruption in the police departments that is happening. And, people in the community are scared to speak out against it because it's been going on for like 400 years. And so usually, these cops are, they're just corrupt. We actually found a police officer who was arrested. And while he was on duty, he sexually assaulted a young woman who was under the age of 18. He picked her up, he handcuffed her, raped her in the back of his car, transported her somewhere else, and then took her back. And this was like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and they just indicted him 2 years ago, last year. So last August, they indicted him. No, the August before last, they indicted him. He stayed in prison or jail for almost 6 months, and then they let him out when the pandemic happened. And now they haven't done anything to him. Like, we've been trying to follow up on his case and be like, well, what are you going to do? He was supposed to be a trusted officer, right? Like, that's what they want us to do, is say these officers are trusted. But when you're out here raping women and young girls, who can trust that? And then they often try to blame the victim, right? And discredit them and say, well, they were prostitutes or they were on drugs. You know what? Everybody hits a hard time in their life. Stop doing that. And so they victim blame. And then, the media spins it a weird way. They don't uplift Indigenous women. And then I get a lot of people who don't understand, like, why are you just only uplifting Indigenous women? Well, because Indigenous women are invisible. So, you know, a white woman who goes missing, they're usually on the news. People hear about it. They have, you know, these alerts that happen on the interstate. But when an Indigenous woman goes missing, we're not uplifted in the news in the same way. And so when we can raise the invisibility issue of Indigenous women to to white women, we can uplift all women, people of color, especially here in the South, because there's a lot of mix between Indigenous and African Americans. And, you know, most people do have Indigenous roots. They just don't know about them because we were told not to talk about that. And so, it's a whole cadre of things that are happening. And you have to kind of unpack those issues of like intergenerational trauma. And they're all connected. They all intersect like racial justice, environmental justice, what else? And economic justice. They all intersect. And I can see it like coming together full circle.
This movement and the way that, you know, organizers like yourself are, you know, uniting these issues and pointing out, you know, teaching basically the rest of us how to see these issues as very layered, as very complex, and not just as a single thing, but how they are intertwined and the tentacles expand out to a lot of different places. But it is heartbreaking to hear you describe the way or the lack of interest and effort that the police put into murdered Indigenous women's cases. And it's just for another rule for 4,000, you know, the 4,000th reason to abolish or defund the police, because they do not keep us safe. They are here to protect and serve. But it doesn't seem that they are protecting and serving the Indigenous community, especially when women are murdered. And girl, the way what you describe sounds like the police is all in it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you do have those little pockets of corruption that hop up. And, you know, like you were saying, like North Alamance County, where I live, we have a a sheriff who actually is all for ICE, right? And so we have a large Hispanic population. And, you know, he kind of terrorizes the people because he has these ICE raids. And, you know, you're like terrorizing these people. So you have people, there was this one woman, I know we're getting off topic, there was this one woman who didn't speak really good English, and she was an American citizen. He held her in his jail for like 6 hours and trying to intimidate her and get her, you know, like rolled up to go to Atlanta, where they deport illegal immigrants. And, you know, she was like, I'm an American citizen. And until someone brought her verification documents, he kept her there. You know, that's very traumatic. And, you know, you can't get past stuff like that. Like, I was explaining to my daughter, like, when I see a police, and I haven't done anything, when I see a police, I get nervous, like, oh my God, is he gonna pull me over? Am I going over the speed limit? You know, just crazy things. And I know that's just me as a woman. I can't imagine being a Black man having that fear. Like, you wake up and have that fear. I would love to be a white person and not have that fear, right? Just ride around in my Jeep with my top down, not have to worry about that, right?
Yes, with the cocaine on the dashboard with an open container right next to you. Just living life fancy free, man. If the police treated all people the way they treat white people, you know, I bet you we wouldn't have as much issue with the police. But Crystal, I have to thank you very much for sharing these very important issues with the Burn It Down with Kim Brown family, because for one, even with a Democrat in office, of course, you know this, but a lot of people are like, oh, goody, Joe Biden's in office. Oh, you heard he canceled the Keystone XL pipeline. Well, you know, it's something, but it ain't a lot. And there's way more that can be done. And thank you for illuminating the connections between the construction of these pipelines and how that ties to missing and murdered Indigenous women in places where these pipelines are being constructed. So I appreciate you drawing those lines for us so we can see them very clearly. Y'all, we have been joined today with Crystal Cavalier. Crystal is a co-founder of 7 Directions of Service, She's also the executive director of Missing Murdered Indigenous Women North Carolina. She is a citizen of the Occaneechi Band of the Saponi Nation from North Carolina, and she's an expert in her field of strategic intelligence, political campaigns, and public administration. Crystal, good luck with your doctorate and your dissertation.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we appreciate you making some time. And everybody go check out the links that Crystal let us know. I think, Genevieve, when you get a moment, can you drop them in the chat or in the comments so everybody can check out? And don't forget about the action that is happening there down in North Carolina on May the 2nd. Crystal, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, gang, I see we've got a nice little bunch in the chat room. Hey, what's up, Afro Sings? Thank you so much, darling, for your love. New ABC show, Big Sky, highlighted the issue of Indigenous women being kidnapped and murdered, as well as corruption in law enforcement perpetuating it. Y'all heard this. Afro said, new ABC show, y'all, Big Sky, is highlighting one of the issues that we discussed here today with Crystal. And we are going to be talking about the issue of murdered and missing Indigenous women more, and how it also affects Black women as well. There is an independent media outlet out of Chicago. It's called Block Club Chicago. And I saw recently, I'm not sure if this is a documentary, but it said something about the missing 51. And there was, and it has to do with missing Black women, I believe, mostly Black women in Chicago, and why that is such a commonplace occurrence in some of our bigger cities, where Black and brown women and girls are abducted, murdered, trafficked, all bad, y'all. Please don't think that slavery is not still happening in these United States, because they absolutely are. It's been an interesting week, guys, and I know after the verdict of Derek Chauvin was read on Tuesday, of course, you can go back and check out Tuesday's show. Wouldn't suggest you hop in Tuesday's show's comments, though, because the Troll Nation is still very much with us. And of course, you know, our position to Troll Nation is fuck you, Bammers. But unless you like that kind of conflict, I would just as soon as avoid it. But after the Chauvin verdict was read, Derek Chauvin guilty in the murder of George Floyd, you know, police didn't get that memo. They didn't take the day off from killing Black people, as we know what happened with Ma'Khia Bryant, 16 years old, in Columbus, Ohio, on Tuesday. But there were others. Andrew Brown Jr. from Elizabeth City, North Carolina, died after deputies went to execute a search warrant in a residential neighborhood, and that happened Wednesday. So, and there are more, I believe. I don't think that these were the only two to happen this week. And as many people have said, and please let me echo this point, you know, Derek Chauvin is the sacrificial lamb in this. And quite frankly, I don't even think that Derek Chauvin, even though he's going to be in jail, I believe that the penal system is still going to work to protect him as much as possible and make his time behind bars as comfortable as they possibly can. King Kamashiro, thank you so much for your donation, honey. We appreciate that. So Derek Chauvin being convicted is not a referendum on American policing at all, as proven by the murder victims that we have seen already this week. And the reason why, guys, I'm not going to spend a lot of time today, at least, talking about what happened to Ma'Khia Bryant, is because I personally need to do some more information gathering and fact checking, because a lot of motherfuckers is out here popping off with hot takes. Well, she had a knife and blah, blah, blah. First of all, I have lots of questions. And again, I all I know is that the young lady was murdered and whom she was murdered by. I have not sought out a lot of details about this case, but I mean, her having a knife did not, to me, in my eyes, justify her being shot 4 times, especially if the officer was so concerned about public safety. Wasn't he concerned about shooting the person that she was allegedly trying to stab? And also, I need to know who called 911 for sure. I've not seen, I like, again, I have information gathering that I need to do. I don't know who called 911. I don't know whose property it was that they were at when the police responded. I don't know what happened before that. I don't know if police had been called to the property beforehand because of, some sort of confrontation potentially. So I will speak on this when I am in a satisfied state of having enough information to speak on it. Like a lot of motherfuckers just out here popping off. I assure you, y'all, even though I curse a lot, I do have a journalism background, and I'm going to approach a lot of these issues and a lot of these topics from the perspective of someone who is already on the left and who has a natural empathy for people. But again, I would be remiss if I didn't do my due diligence before speaking on shit before I had all the facts. So next week we will speak about what happened to Ma'Khia Bryant. Hopefully even we can speak with some people from Ohio, specifically who can hip us to what the reaction is in the community there. And who, I mean, people, the streets be talking, y'all. Like, people know what happened or what was going on and what this altercation was all about. And I think that has some relevance here, because if Ma'Khia was home, and let me shout out Chuck Modiano real quick. Chuck Modiano said this on Twitter. He said, for one, if Ma'Khia had been white and people had came to her house to start shit with her and she had a knife, all the Fox News viewers would be saying that she deserved to stand her ground, right? They would be saying, why was this young lady shot if she was defending herself, if she was standing her ground? I believe. Is Ohio a stand your ground state? Something tells me it might be. Regardless, again, we'll speak on this next week, guys. But also, before we sign off here, hip hop, y'all. Hip Hop Nation keeps taking some L's, man. It's been a rough couple weeks for Hip Hop Nation. First, we lost DMX. Then came the news of Black Rob. And then yesterday, I was kind of hoping that the internet had like fake killed this person and that this person was actually alive. But to find out that Shock G from Digital Underground was found dead in Tampa, Florida, for reasons that have not been released. I don't think a cause of death has been released, but it is a big shock. Thank you, Chuck Diesel. Appreciate you, baby. Thank you so much for your support and for your love. Shock G, y'all. Digital Underground came from an era of hip hop where there was let me say it was a mix, actually, because first of all, everybody knows Digital Underground for the Humpty Dance, right? And Shock G's genius was on full display for every piece of the Humpty Dance. But DU came from for one that Bay Area rap, right? The Loonies, what's up to the Loonies? What's up to Spice One? What's up to Drew Down? What's up to Too Short? DU came out of that Bay Area, right? And Shock G, not only, I believe, and you hip hop scholars, you rap scholars can feel free to correct me on this, but I believe that Shock G was producing a good number of those Digital Underground hits, Humpty Dance included. My personal favorite was Do What You Like. And for kids, if you need to understand about really how good Digital Underground was, Sex Packets is a very underrated classic rap album. Freaks of the Industry. Come on, man. Y'all, children, you have homework. You have homework. Go back and visit Sex Packets, Digital Underground, so you can fully understand part of, I'm gonna say genius. I'm not going to even fuck around with it. The genius of Shock G. And from another perspective, so Shock G, okay, hold on. Let me start this over. Not start it over. When Digital Underground, so when Humpty Dance came out, I was like in 7th grade, right? Humpty Dance, huge. Killing them at the middle school dance with the Humpty Dance, right? And Do What You Like. Do What You Like is tight as fuck. But like, Shock G pulled off this alter ego with Humpty Hump that had rap heads going for it. I'll give you an example. At that same age in middle school, I used to consume all genres of music, baby. I was consuming rap, I was consuming rock, I was consuming pop, I was consuming it all, R&B, everything. Give it all to me. I loved everything. But I would listen to Casey Kasem's Top 40. Okay, don't call me Granny, please. Don't say Granny. You was alive when Casey Kasem was out there giving the hits. Yes, I was out there alive, listening to Casey Kasem's Top 40. And I will never forget this. When the Humpty Dance was charting and doing really well on the pop charts, Casey Kasem would sometimes interject these little anecdotes, like these little, fun facts about, hey, cut it out. Would interject these little fun facts about the artist, right? And one thing that I remember this very distinctly, is that he told a whole backstory about Humpty Hump. He told a whole backstory about how Humpty Hump had been in this accident and like his vocal box had gotten crushed or something. And that's the reason why he talked like funny, right? That was some bullshit. Shock G told the white people a whole tale, and the white people brought that shit hook, line, and sinker. Shock G was Humpty Hump, and made no bones about it. Nick, thank you so much for for your support. So y'all, I want us to play this clip real quick of Shock G back in the day. The first clip is him and Pac, like before Pac was even Pac, really, because we know. Real rap heads know that Tupac's very first appearance on anybody's major song was when Digital Underground had a song called Same Song, which was it the Addams Family? It was some ghoulish looking movie soundtrack. No, it was, oh my God. It's like nothing. I know what the fuck it is. See, that's what happens when you smoke too much weed. Who knows what soundtrack it was? Tell me in the chat so I can know. But this is a clip of Shock G and Pac before they were ginormous, right? Because Shock G discovered Pac and put Pac on his first major label single with Same Song. And then the second clip is going to be kind of when Shock G, because Shock G, like I said, kept that story of him being Humpty Hump like as like an urban legend almost. He kept that shit going for a while. So the second clip is a performance of Humpty Hump introducing Shock G as they do their respective verses on the I Got 5 on It remix. Y'all know what that remix was, the Bay Area All-Stars, Gen X Stand Up, Gen X Stand Up. Tunde, let's check out that Shock G clips, please.
Underground mix coming at you. My name is Shock G.
And I'm too motherfucking Pac.
Yeah, okay? Now see, D-Flow continues. D-Flow ain't stopped with no motherfucking Sons of the P, okay?
Hell no.
We gonna keep rolling. Just like we got Tupacalypse, we got all kinds of things going on. Pac, why don't you tell these brothers what's happening?
See, let me tell you. First of all, Raw Fusion is no illusion. Gold Money ain't nothing funny. They still humping, now we out of Oakland. My man Humpty Hump and the whole Digital Underground posse finna come out with yet another album, even more slamming than the last. We just finna go straight underground. We finna live up to the name, Digital Underground. Tupacalypse come out with a new album, Troublesome. We finna just hit y'all like a family. We all just, trying to make it.
Thank you. Because it's all about the music. It ain't about all that other stuff. You know what I'm saying?
That other shit.
All that other shit.
It ain't about
he and she and he and that and
Fuck
radio
that.
and spladio and dadio. It ain't all about that. It's about keeping the groove in the music so that it relates to our people. And can't nobody do that better than my man Pac.
Yeah, my nigga, Shock motherfucking G.
Thank you, guys.
Hear me?
Thank you, guys. Yeah, so right about now, we want y'all to keep it tuned right here and stay tuned with the Underground Mix.
Straight underground.
Okay?
Where else can a nigga walk right up to the camera and just be like, fuck all y'all?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Where else could a nigga tell a secret like do-de-o-do? But yo, you didn't hear that right here.
Okay. Come here. G Gates. On the Underground. I'm after your ass, nigga.
Yeah, once again, this is my man Tupac and Shock G on the Underground Mix.
Underground, y'all.
Yeah.
We out, man. We finna go get some hugs.
Yeah, because we in the play. Underground.
Yo,
appreciate. I didn't really write that song myself, but the person who wrote that song for me is in the building, and I want to bring him up real quick. If I can I bring him up? He wrote the Humpty Dance. All right. Yeah, may I present to you the satin in their panties, my brother. The original freak of the industry. Please welcome my brother, Shah G.
Who like to get high? What? We in the room, but don't nobody like to get high?
See, I'm riding high.
Alright, well I guess I'm gonna be high enough for everybody. Cause I got 5 on everything.
It's been a while since I hollered from the town. Just around and hurry up. Get down, said I gotta be down. Cause new styles are going down. Look around you. Tunes from the roots spread around and round. Yo, I'm back to this one. Pedal in my ball. Yeah, I'm on it. Still bringing this tag for the draws. For the mic, I got around to
Roll up cannabis sativa, hitting the Mary Jane, smoking a 5 before it's 12 o'clock, sipping on Hurricane, better smoking the endo, blow it out my window, finna go to the land with a handful of broccoli. When it comes to sticky, I'm the man. Crash nasty, I be hitting the J so hard I Earl, falling on the floor, finna have a stroke, THC and no joke. Ooh, sorry. One of my favorite rap collaborations of all times, the I Got 5 on It remix with the Bay Area All-Stars. Rest in peace to Shock G. Much love going out to Oakland. What's up to the Bay Area? What's up to the whole hip hop and rap scene out there in California? I know y'all are hurting right now. You lost a big one. Rap lost a big one. Hip hop lost a big one. So our condolences and sincere sorry goes out to the family of Shock G and all the fans of Digital Underground. So, and thank you all. I knew y'all knew what movie soundtrack it was. Nothing But Trouble. Yes, same song all around the world. It's the same song. My mother actually loved that song. It's so strange, just random stuff. My mom is selectively like huge fans of like certain rap songs that doesn't seem to have any rhyme or reason. And Same Song by Digital Underground is one of those songs. She also is a big fan of Mass Appeal by Gangstar, and she loves T.I. What's her favorite song? You Don't Know Me by T.I. is actually one of my mom's favorite tunes, but she loves Same Song by Digital Underground, Tupac's first appearance on a joint. So thank you all. I see everybody's in the chat. Thank you all to everybody who gave us super chat donations. Please, if you have not already subscribed to the Burn It Down with Kim Brown YouTube channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Guys, we are super close to getting to 1,900 subscribers. Which to me, it's fantastic. I'm very happy, glad, appreciative, and grateful that people are getting the word out about the kind of content and the kind of programming that we're doing here. Also, guys, a heads up, I am going to start doing stuff with the Black Power Media Group, BPM. Y'all know who they are. Kalanji over there, Dr. Jared Ball, Dr. CBS, the Luke Bonds. I'm going to be doing some work with them over on the BPM channel. But Burn It Down with Kim Brown is our happy home. Okay. this is our community, and it's going to remain that way. But we are absolutely going to build and collaborate with people who share our same political outlook and worldview. And they are all very smart, very dedicated revolutionaries over there at BPM. And I am honored that we will be working together and collaborating in the very near future. So be looking out for that. Guys, that's our show. It's Friday. Please, as you all know, COVID still very much out here, jumping all over people. I mean, fucking them up. I'm getting my vaccination, my first shot on Sunday. I'm excited about that. Yes, I'm not opposed to the vaccine because I want to go places, goddammit, and I'm scared of shit of COVID. Okay, COVID is out here fucking people up. I have a lot of confidence in my immune system, but not versus some shit that it's never encountered on the planet before. So yes, sign me up for the vaccination. I am in. And please, y'all, COVID, like I said, out here jumping on people. I don't want it to jump on you. Please wear your mask, social distance, wash your hands, get that vaccination, man. I know we got some anti-vaxxers in here, and that's going to make some of y'all mad. But anti-vaxxers, let me just say this. Y'all motherfuckers don't know one person with polio. Y'all don't know a single fucking person with polio unless you are over the age of 70. If you 50 and under, you don't know nobody with polio. You didn't go to school with nobody with polio. You didn't graduate with nobody with polio. So, don't shit on the vaccines too tough. You know why? Because you don't know nobody with polio. So let me leave it there, guys. Have a fantastic weekend. We will see y'all back here on the Spinat for Burn It Down with Kim Brown. You guys are awesome. Thank you very much to Tunde Jean-Vie, everybody, as well. See y'all later. Bye-bye. Ha ha.